they were genuinely concerned with, we want to restrict the labor market to help workers the right, would also oppose a convict leasing scheme where prisoners are exploited by private employers outside prison walls. Last week, there was a class action lawsuit filed against Alabama's prison system. The plaintiffs are 10 former and current carcerated people, labor unions, and some criminal justice nonprofits. And the complaint more or less alleges that despite the fact that Alabama outlawed forced servitude for punishment, despite that, that is still the case in Alabama's prisons. If you do not participate in their work release programs, then you are punished with physical and sometimes sexual abuse. You're put in solitary confinement. And then even when you do work, you are abused at work because your employment is obviously more precarious and your freedom is obviously more precarious than what the lawsuit calls quote-unquote free civilian employees. You also make very little money. You make less than the quote-unquote free civilian employees. And then on top of making less than that, a lot of these people they're only being paid by the company $7.25 an hour. On top of that, the prisons take 40% of that, plus transportation and some other things. And so workers make as little as $2 an hour. And and not only are they punished when they are just like, I just don't want to work, like just generally, but when they get sick, there are reports of being of them having been punished for not working when they were sick, right? And like, no, I don't know about you, but I'm not. Work release programs in prisons. There's a place for them, I think, particularly in rehabilitation of an inmate and stuff like that. But
sure, if it's done the right way.
If it's done the right way, and the right way has to be, they cannot be paid less than the civilian employees. And frankly, I think the company should probably pay more. They should have to pay more than they pay civilian employees because of the, I don't know, it just seems the ability for exploitation there as an employer is so much higher. And so, when you're doing this, taking prisoners from a work release program, it really should be, you're kind of trying to fill gaps, right? And so there should be kind of a premium on that. It seems to me I could it's not a position that I hold very strongly, but that seems kind of like it would make sense. But that's not the way that it's being done here. And so,
no, this is modern day convict leasing.
According to the class action complaint, and this is coming from the Washington Post, some 575 employers have leased incarcerated labor through this system since 2018, which plaintiffs say is enough to generate more than $450 million annually for the state. The private companies named as defendants include food and beverage distributors, manufacturers, fast food franchisees, and a laundry cleaning service. Prisoners working at fast food restaurants work run-of-the-mill jobs, such as fry cooks or others, while those in manufacturing sometimes carry out skilled duties, such as metal fabrication, welding, and precision die casting. And not only and this was kind of the even crazier part to me, not only are private employers taking advantage of this, but so are municipalities and government agencies. The city of Montgomery, named as a defendant, procured at least 343 incarcerated laborers to work in various capacities. over just the first 8 months of 2023. The city of Montgomery, remember, is led by Mayor Stephen Reed, who was just yesterday talking about how it is, quote, disappointing that we can't fix most major problems in Alabama, especially around criminal justice reform, without going to federal court. And it's like the gall to publicly pontificate about the abuses of our criminal justice system while taking part in it is just insane. It's wild to me. I don't understand how you would get away with that. So the complaint says, quote, this case seeks to abolish a modern-day form of slavery. They have been entrapped in a system of, quote, convict leasing, in which incarcerated people are forced to work, often for little or no money, for the benefit of the numerous government entities and private businesses that, quote, employ them. They live in a constant danger of being murdered, stabbed, or raped that is so profound that the federal government has sued Alabama for inflicting cruel and unusual punishment, and if they refuse to work, the state punishes them even more. They are trapped in a labor trafficking scheme. One of the stories in the lawsuit comes from LaCuria Walker, who was incarcerated from 2007 to 2023, and her parole hearing was scheduled from 2020 to 2023. And Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall opposed her application even though her victims, and she was incarcerated for like battery or something, right? Not murder or rape or anything like that. Her victims supported her release, but Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall opposed her application. Walker had to perform long hours of work inside the prison. That included stripping floors and caring for sick and disabled inmates. She also did road work for Jefferson County, where she endured sexual harassment and worked at Southeastern Meats. She often spent time inside the freezers with inadequate clothing. On one occasion, Miss Walker was so ill that she had to be carried to the healthcare unit and could not work. She was approached by an ADOC job placement officer who told her she had to, quote, get up and go make us our 40%. There is no reasonable argument that Miss Walker posed a threat to public safety for more than a decade before she was released, giving her history of performing work both inside and outside prison walls without incident. Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate. I mean, just really gross stuff. There's one inmate, Michael Campbell from the Childersburg Work Release Center, said he hopes to work 5 to 6 days at a local KFC, and inmates are beginning to lose hope that they'll ever qualify for paroles. And one inmate said they deny us parole to keep us doing the jobs. The mentality is, why would the slave master let the slave go when he can continue working him for free? In addition to that, so you've got so there's multiple angles to this. There's, for one, just the inhumane treatment of the prisoners, and the fact that there's forced labor going on, and that's illegal and illegal under Alabama's Constitution. Not illegal under the federal Constitution, but illegal under Alabama's Constitution. And then, in those forced labor conditions, there's abuse of the prisoners and all of that. But then there's also the fact that when these workers are being exploited and utilized like this by private employers and government entities, that undermines efforts to organize workers in the fast food and poultry industries, right? And that makes sense. And so the unions that's one of the reasons why the unions are joining this lawsuit, saying that this, quote, depresses wages and working conditions. The Woods Foundation, another nonprofit, argues that it has had to devote additional money and staff to address the, quote, unfair and unlawful functioning of the parole system. And so this is a very, this is, a very similar argument to the one about undocumented immigration. that people on the right will make. Right? People on the right will come out and they'll say undocumented immigrants are bad for the local labor market because, they will work for less money. And then their conclusion is not to, strengthen unions and strengthen government protections and raise the floor so that even if they're willing to work for less money, that they're not able to work for less money, and everybody has, set this floor for employers, or and their answer to that is not to grant undocumented immigrants, legal status so that they can organize without fear of retribution or deportation or anything like that, which are all answers to the question of, undocumented immigrants' ill effects on the local labor market, which is even, that's even granting the degree to which the argument is true. There are, conflicting data on that, but I think intuitively, at least, it makes sense. But those are answers to it. But the answer that the right will say is, no, get them out of here. But that is totally, it's just a fig leaf for, xenophobic bigotry, because the right is supporting this convict leasing system. Right? If they were genuinely concerned with, we want to restrict the labor market to help workers have better negotiating power individually, because they don't like unions, but individually as they're applying for jobs, then they would also oppose a convict leasing scheme where prisoners are exploited by private employers outside prison walls who are paid less than civilian employees, who have to endure worse working conditions, and who have to do it at penalty of further punishment inside of Alabama's unconstitutionally cruel prison system, right? You can obviously understand how if a free worker is put up against one of these prison workers, they're going to be undermined by that. They're going to be undermined and undercut by the conditions that the prison worker is forced to work in. Right? And that is the system that conservative Republicans, and frankly, probably a lot of the Democrats, support. So when they talk about this stuff about, I oppose undocumented immigration because I support local workers, just remember that and then ask them about that. And then when they say, no, I support the system that allows private employers to exploit prisoners, know that it's not, I just think that the best way to help local workers is to deport all of these other workers. It's not like it's not just a simple single-minded focus on helping local workers. It's just bigotry, frankly, right? And that's one of the ways that you know that. So here's some examples from the lawsuit. A prisoner working for a private laundry service might be paid $7.25 an hour, but after factoring in the 40% paid to the state prison system, state and federal payroll taxes, and laundry and transportation costs, the prisoner collects just $2.06 an hour. Really, really gross stuff. When working for, and then it gets even worse when working for state and local entities, because there incarcerated people are typically paid $2, not an hour, a day. The same daily rate that the state of Alabama set for incarcerated labor in 1927.
Wow. Which, by the way, is around the time that, it's my understanding, the UMWA helped lead an end to convict leasing in Alabama.
Yep.
Or at least we thought, right?
Right.
Because convict leasing was such a huge problem after the Civil War, particularly here in the South, and the UMWA in Alabama actually helped lead the way in fighting back against that. So that, just some good union history there. But it's wild that here we are in 2023, almost 2024, encountering this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I did want to point out, in the Alabama Political Reporter, a friend of the show, Patrick Darrington, had a good article about it as well, and he quoted Fred Redmond, Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO and Chair of the AFL-CIO Racial Justice Task Force. He also spoke during the press conference, and he spoke about how important the suit was specifically to prevent forced labor. And he said, quote, "This lawsuit is a strong first step toward eliminating forced labor in the Alabama prison system and righting the wrongs from this egregious labor exploitation. Fighting to abolish forced labor is a priority of the AFL-CIO and the American labor movement, and we won't rest until this corrupt, immoral scheme ends for good." And if there's any hope amid this cruelty, it's that there is this broad coalition pushing this litigation. I know that there have been a lot of organizations doing good research on this. I know that, to see different unions such as the RWDSU, to see the AFL-CIO, to see these others involved, I believe SEIU
Union of Southern Service Workers.
Union of Southern Service Workers, to see these unions joining with criminal justice nonprofits and joining with lawyers to try to push this forward, to try to get justice. I think that is promising, and it's something that our labor movement has to deal with. We have to address this, right? I mean, the modern day convict leasing, it's so unacceptable. And then you factor in the fact that Alabama has one of the highest incarceration rates in the country, which has the highest incarceration rate on the planet. We lock up more people inside the borders of Alabama than almost anywhere else on earth. And then when you find out what's happening here, it makes more sense. And you start to see, okay, well, obviously there's vested interest in maintaining this huge population of warehoused human beings living in deplorable conditions and now being forced to work for the profit of others. And I know like fast food chains have gotten a lot of the publicity and some of the coverage, but it's not just them, right? A beverage distributor, local governments, like you said, auto parts supply chain, to include Hyundai's auto parts supply chain. All right, the same supply chain that was caught using children, migrant children. The same Hyundai that was sued for racism not too long ago. Same Hyundai that is right now committing ULPs, unfair labor practices, in their Montgomery area plant against the UAW in their organizing drive, right? So, that's also one of my takeaways is, holy crap, Hyundai is just really trying to be the most nefarious corporation in Alabama. And there's a lot of tough competition for that.
Right.
Tough competition to be the most nefarious company in the state of Alabama. But Hyundai, they're really trying to get the dishonor.
Yeah. And they are, Huntsville's Democratic Representative Anthony Daniels is carrying water for them as he has bill signings at Hyundai for his bills that have passed. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.